Watson, Chief Executive, Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce, and I see you have Phil de Jeux with you as well. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present today. As Leeann has said, Phil de Jeux here on my right-hand side, and Phil's been basically responsible for putting together the wonderful submission that you have hopefully all read. So what I'd like to do is just make some opening statements and trust that you have all read that submission, and then very happy to answer any questions. So as hopefully most of you know, the Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce are the largest membership-based organisation across the South Island, and we currently have over 2,900 members from around Canterbury and the West Coast, and we've been the home and voice of Canterbury business since 1859. It goes without saying that we are committed to the city. We're also aware of the challenges that we all confront in rebuilding and regenerating Christchurch after the earthquakes. But we are concerned that the scenario laid out in the long-term plan does not deliver the vision articulated by the council, and we believe that it will take a change in attitude and the acceptance of some different and more innovative ways of operating for us to realise that vision. The Chamber welcomes the vision for Christchurch articulated in the document of the city as a place of opportunity for all, a place that is open to new ideas, new people and new ways of doing things, a place where anything is possible. However, there is a fundamental disconnect between the stated vision for Christchurch and the proposed result delivered in the draft LTP. The reality is that the level of service delivery and asset and infrastructure maintenance and development contemplated by the draft LTP's preferred option does not live up to that vision or what our citizens should expect. The reality is that we are New Zealand's second biggest city. While we've been through some hardship, it is not unreasonable 7 years on to expect to have a comprehensive, affordable plan to return our infrastructure to a standard enjoyed by other cities in New Zealand. It is also not unreasonable for our citizens to expect to enjoy the amenities that other people in similar sized cities enjoy. So in short, we would like to see the focus put on the high scenario rather than the middle option outlined in the document. The funding gap to deliver this appears to be around $2 billion. In order to bridge the gap, the Chamber would like to see the final LTP altered to reflect a commitment to work at pace to get our city back to what we would expect from New Zealand's second largest city, a new approach to maximise the release of capital from the assets the city owns, and a commitment to developing an innovative approach to managing assets and services, a commitment to finding efficiencies in current spending, a strong pathway indicating investment in infrastructure to ensure we are on the events calendar again in Christchurch, and specifically the delivery of a multi-use arena in a reasonable time. Under the current capital program proposal, the work will not be completed on the arena until 2025. We strongly endorse bringing this project forward in the timetable, and great to hear the signal from you, Leeann, this morning on that. But certainly in terms of in light of the government's recent announcement of support for accelerating the development of the business case for this facility. And overall, a commitment to a new, innovative way of thinking that will ensure we can deliver on the vision that the Council is espousing and that we at the Chamber also share and fully support. The Chamber would like to see an LTP that is much bolder. We believe that Christchurch should offer an experience to its residents that is comparable and preferably exceeds other major cities. However, we are also cognizant of the financial challenges of delivering these outcomes. That is why we are very supportive of creative and innovative solutions being found. It will take a change in the way that we think about what assets we currently own, how we manage them, and how we maximise the returns from those assets. If we are not prepared to change and to be bold, we will be left with a vision for Christchurch that we will simply be unable to realise. Very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Dion?
In regards to the assets you were talking about, do you see any opportunities for some strategic partnerships rather than just selling the assets, and that could deliver value to the city?
Absolutely, and I think there is a confusion that the minute we add assets into any conversation, people automatically assume that we're talking about asset sales, and we're not suggesting that the council sells all its assets. What we are suggesting is nothing should be left off the table. There should be a robust discussion about all of those assets and how we can realise more potential from those assets. Strategic Partners is a great example of how we can potentially bring in additional value to those assets by bringing in a partner that has more experience, will add value to that asset, and actually invest in our city along with the council and with the rest of the Christchurch.
Vicky?
Just in relation to the capital raising from the assets that we own, are you aware of the bond raising that we've already done?
Yes, I am.
But are you thinking then that we can just keep raising capital on those assets?
So I guess the example that that Leeann just mentioned about bringing in strategic partnerships is one way. Another way is to actually look at partial asset sales. So raising money through a bond is one option, but it's not the only option available to the council. Does that answer your question?
You're aware that once you raise a bond, you're sort of limited in what you can do, and that
Limited, but not.
No, it's
totally
the order of
limited.
payback. You just have to pay down the bond issue, that's all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not an
It doesn't
unreasonable...
preclude you from doing the things that we're suggesting.
It doesn't, no. Jimmy?
You particularly mention the council need to consider identify new ways, make those the service available to the city, but without necessarily only, which means probably need to attract or engage with wider, the potential the business, the investor in this area, but in practically how to make that happen, because regarding to the break even, etc., how to make that happen is my view. Particularly in your the submission, the item the 30 here.
So look, we are very, very happy to work with anyone across the city to identify solutions, because we do appreciate, as we've said a number of times in our submission, that we have some massive challenges ahead of us. So working with business and working across the city with all of the different entities is really important as we move forward to find solutions. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry, Jimmy, I didn't...
Yeah, I mean, because a basic or fundamental kind of service, that's very important. For instance, I mean, like a central city libraries,
Yes, okay.
whether business have interest into invest, it's a basic one.
Absolutely. I think there is real potential to look at partnerships with business in a number of areas of delivery that the council are currently involved in. And it's about having that innovative thinking. And I think, Meg Broughton before talked about some of what they're suggesting, and even working across the region rather than just the city, I think is a different approach to the way that we are currently doing things, and that is what is needed here, is to really think creatively about how we bridge some of the gaps that we've got.
Okay, thank you.
Yanni, did you have a question?
I'm just trying to understand, you've, in terms of the kind of thrust of your submission, you're asking us to reduce operational spending, but you're asking us to bring forward the things that will have a huge impact on operational spending, like the stadium. At the same time, you're asking us to get rid of things that bring in money to us as a city. So I'm just trying to understand from a very high level, in terms of an economic sense of doing something like that, which seems to be raising costs and reducing our income.
We're not actually talking about reducing operational spending. What we're talking about is finding other ways to raise revenue to pay for it. So at the moment, the only levers that are being used are rates and debt, and we're saying there are other options.
Right. So, but the idea of selling things off, even partially, that bring in revenue to us,
Yep.
to put into something like a stadium, which will cost us a fortune to run. How does that make economic sense?
Well, I think you're also assuming by partial asset sales that you're going to be worse off, and that is not necessarily the case. So I think there are, what we're suggesting is there are a number of different things, as Phil said, there are a number of levers that should be looked at across the whole platform, rather than just looking at simply debt and rates as the two levers. There are a number of different options that we need to consider.
I'm sort of struggling to see from your submission is, apart from partial asset sales, which again I don't quite understand the economic argument, is where that additional funding would come from for things like a stadium, for example, which we're still paying off the last stadium that we redeveloped, which was going to have all these benefits, which never really seemed to be realised.
I think we've pretty much answered the question. I mean, one of the options is partial asset sales, bringing strategic partners on board. So that's another option that the council has that shouldn't be dismissed.
Other questions? Look, thank you very much for your time again, for submitting on this. This is, it's actually, I said this the other day, and I know that the Chief Executive feels the same way, that this is a much harder LTP than the first one. The first one, it was kind of what we didn't know, and we had to make decisions like pushing the stadium out in the time frame. We didn't have an insurance settlement. We didn't know how much we were going to get shortchanged on the horizontal infrastructure. We now know how much we were shortchanged. You know, so we've got a number of challenging issues in front of us. And thank you very much for going to the trouble of submitting on the plan.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.